Enright.
Present.
King.
Present.
Austin.
Present.
Helly.
Present.
Hagan.
Present.
We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Okay, item number 1 is, first of all, we're removing 12. I don't think we got anything on it, but council, we know. We're removing 12, so with the removal of 12, we need a motion for adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Item 2 is a motion approving minutes from October 2nd, 2017. We need a motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Under recognitions and awards, Captain McKeegan, you have some new police officers to introduce.
I do. We had 3 new officers start with us. Stand up and introduce themselves and kind of walk through and shake hands. Nate?
Why don't you have it go up to the podium, or wherever you want. We need to.
Nate is 9 David 121. We go by badge numbers. The mayor was 40. My badge number's 77, so this tells you how much time's passed and where our hiring's at.
My cousin was 13.
Yep,
No, he was 7. He was,
So Nate is 121. You want to just introduce yourself? Just tell them kind of where you're from. And
Yep. My name is Nate St. Aubin. I'm originally from Marshall, Minnesota. Hopefully have my family, my wife and 3 kids here soon as our house sells back in Marshall, so we're looking forward to it.
are you renting now, or?
The plan is to rent, yeah, I'm looking at a house here tonight yet, so.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Good for you. Thanks. Good
you
luck.
usually make the round, shake some hands.
Good to see you again.
Welcome to Austin.
Rachel is 9 David 122.
Hi, I'm Rachel Olson. I'm from Owatonna, and I'm moving to the area soon, probably this week.
You can commute for a
So-
little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome. Nice to see you again.
Okay. Gotta get on that daycare again, huh?
And our 3rd new hire, Michael, have you come up? He's 123.
Mike Nordine, originally from Two Harbors, Minnesota. Don't have any kids or anything like that.
You got plenty of time.
Yeah. Currently live in Eota, Minnesota, so hopefully probation goes well and I can move into the city here.
Okay. Great. Good.
Congrats again.
Welcome.
We're not gonna make you guys sit through the whole meeting. So, I
darn.
mean, you can if you want, but we
They told me
won't-
earlier they were really looking forward
We
to it.
won't take it personally if you don't, because it gets can be kind of boring. Anyway,
Yep, thanks for coming, guys. We appreciate it. And for the console's benefit, we do have one more new hire hopefully starting with us. There's a couple things that have to happen, but we were authorized for 4. We were able to get 3 in our initial group. We should hopefully have another one doing some introductions maybe in 3 to 4 weeks here.
is that gonna use up our list?
Although the list still has some names on it, I think the chief and the Civil Service Commission may take a look at where we're at after this next hire. But I think there's still maybe at least one more on there that I think looks pretty good. So
Okay, thank you, David. All right, number 4 is a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 5, public hearing. It's a resolution reviewing a tax abatement application from John Bergstrom. Craig.
Thank you, Mayor and members. We have an application for a project at 1301 29th Street Southwest. This is a spec home by Penn's Custom Homes. The estimated value is at $300,000. The submission of the required information is in conformance with adopted policy from the City Council. Council action is requested to approve the abatement.
Council, any questions, comments? then we need a resolution.
Any comments from the public?
Oh, yeah, it's a public hearing. Is Mr. Bergstrom here? You don't need to be. Okay, it's a public hearing, so if anybody has anything they want to add. If not, we need a resolution to approve or deny.
So move the resolution to approve.
Is there a second? Second. Mr. Dankert.
Councilmember Fisher.
Aye.
Enright.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Helly.
Aye.
Hagan.
Aye.
Councilmember Large Anderson.
Aye.
Resolution passes 7-0, Your Honor.
Thank you. Under petitions and requests, 6 is a motion authorizing the use of DNR and local option sales tax funds for the acquisition of 409 8th Avenue Southeast and 602 6th Avenue Southeast. Stephen?
Yes, pretty explanatory as you described there, Mayor. The only thing to add to that would be this would expend our one DNR grant that we have. With this authorization to purchase these 2 homes, we'd be able to utilize all the remaining funds in an original $450,000 grant that we had from the DNR.
Okay, and these homes are going to be removed then, right? Correct. Floodplain, okay. Council, anything? If not, we need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 7 is a motion approving the schematic design for the Community Recreation Center and authorizing the mayor and city recorder to sign a lease agreement with the YMCA. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mayor, members. That's the next exciting step for the Community Recreation Center. As part of the lease agreement that we entered into with the YMCA on June 6, 2016, there's an Exhibit B, that is the schematic design of the facility. As things have progressed, and we have the schematic design in your packet, included as Exhibit 1, outlines the Youth Activity Center, 5,000 square feet for that, and 2,000 square feet for a children's indoor play area. Those are the 2 predominant areas of city focus for the public portions of the facility. Additional items are outlined that would comprise a community recreation center, including a fitness center, track, gymnasium, locker rooms, and aquatic center, and other items which are included in the schematic design as well. I believe it's in conformance with what we set out from the city. As far as expectations were concerned, we'd be approving the first plan depending upon fundraising. The second plan, that has an expanded gym on the 2nd floor and an additional studio, would proceed forward. If council's in concurrence with the schematic design meeting the intent of what we outlined in our agreement with the YMCA, we'd ask council to approve the schematic design listed as Exhibit B in the agreement and authorize the mayor and recorder to attest the lease agreement with the YMCA.
Council, any questions or comments? We have people here that can answer your questions. If not, we need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Number 8 is a motion approving the sale of surplus library equipment. Julie?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and council members. We had 2 microfilm reader printer systems that were purchased back in 1998. Several years ago, the printer parts of them stopped working. We nursed them along as we could. In 2016, the Friends of the Library donated funds, which helped us purchase a new microfilm reader, which works really well and has printing capabilities. And we're asking permission to sell the 2 old microfiche readers at the police auction.
Okay, council? If there's nothing, we need a motion.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? 9 is a resolution approving extension number 2 to the Mighty Ducks grant agreement. Stephen?
Last fall, we were successful in receiving a $60,000 grant for purchase of an ice resurfacer. Once we became aware that we received the grant, we ordered the equipment immediately, but there's been delays with the delivery of the equipment. So this grant amendment is to extend the deadline for a second time. Originally, it was extended to October 31st, but now in recent conversations with our supplier, it's not going to be quite ready until November. So this grant extension takes us through December 31st, which should allow us to receive the ice resurfacer and make all the necessary payments and reimbursement requests prior to the end of the year. So we would recommend approval of the grant extension.
Council, anything? If not, we need a resolution for 9.
So move the
Is
resolution.
there a second?
Second.
Mr. Dankert?
Councilmember Fisher.
Aye.
Enright.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Helly.
Aye.
Hagan.
Aye.
Councilmember at Large Anderson.
Aye.
Resolution passes 7-0, Your Honor.
Thank you. 10 is motion and ordinance reviewing a zoning request from David Patterson. Ms. Wallace. You going to use the overhead?
Just for this. The petitioner has made this rezoning request to amend the future land use plan and change the current use of his zone or his property zoned as R1 residential to further develop the property as allowed in a B2 district. The allowed uses are noted in your materials under section 11.41 B2 Community Business District. The Planning Commission reviewed the rezoning request at our last meeting. The Planning Commission, with 5 members present, recommended the approval of the rezoning request, 5 ayes and 0 nays. The Planning Commission found that the use is compatible with the surrounding uses and zoning, and that there are no significant impacts anticipated with regard to the existing infrastructure and the surrounding environment. As you can see on the overhead above, the area to the north is commercial and industrial, to the west is industrial, and to the south is commercial and industrial. There is a field between the petitioner's property and the industrial and commercial to the south. The recommendation from the Planning Commission is to approve the rezone and the amendment to the future land use map.
Council? Any questions or comments? If not, we need a motion for preparation of the zoning ordinance.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we need an ordinance for adoption and publication of the zoning ordinance.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Mr. Dankert.
Councilmember Fisher.
Aye.
Enright.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Austin. Helly.
Aye.
Hagan. Councilmember at Large Anderson.
Aye.
Resolution passes 7-0, Your ordinance passes 7-0, Your Honor.
We need a motion resolving the city council to the Board of Adjustment and Appeals.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 11 is a series of motions reviewing a zoning variance from Jay Lutz. Ms. Wallace?
Again, at our last Planning Commission meeting, the Commission reviewed a request from Jay Lutz for a variance from the requirements of Austin City Code Section 11.30 Subdivision 5A, requiring a 25-foot front yard setback in a residential, single-family residential district. The petitioner brought this request. He's proposing to, let's see, I'll go up here. So he's proposing to add on. Can I borrow your pen? Thanks. He's proposing to add on to his kitchen located in this area, which then would take out part of his garage. So he would like to extend the garage further towards the street in the area that's diagonally marked here. The way that the house is located and designed doesn't allow for an expansion in this direction. The bedrooms are located in this area. In order to redesign, the kitchen in this area would not really be feasible. The petitioner was granted a variance at our first meeting in September. However, the distance was incorrectly measured from the curb rather than from the property line. So properly measured, the setback would be approximately 7 feet from the property line and require an 18-foot variance. The proposed variance would not increase or cause obstruction of traffic sight lines in that area. The primary concern would be parking availability. If any trails or sidewalks or road expansion or other work were done in the public right-of-way, the occupants would not be able to use their driveway parking. A possible solution would be requiring parking be limited to the garage. Off-street parking is also available in that area. The shortened driveway is not common in that neighborhood, but there's a property at 1210 12th Avenue Northeast that has approximately a much shorter distance than what they're requesting. The lot coverage is still is 27.8%, which is under the required 40% coverage limit. The Planning Commission, after reviewing with 5 members present, voted unanimously to recommend granting the variance. And I should note that in the agenda it says denying, should say granting the variance. The recommendation comes with the following findings of the Planning Commission: that the variance is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance. The variance, if granted, would not alter the essential character of the locality of which the property is located. There are circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner, and that the landowner intends to use the land in a reasonable manner not permitted by the ordinance. Do you have any questions?
Council? If there are no questions, we need a motion of approval or denial for the variance request.
I make a motion of the resolution to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We need another motion resolving the Board of Adjustment and Appeals back into the City Council.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 13 is a series, 2 motions granting the Planning and Zoning Department the power to contract for the removal of junk and/or illegally stored vehicles at the following locations: 802 14th Street Northeast, the Lunning property. We need a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And finally, 803 15th Street Northeast, another Lunning property. We need a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, we're now to citizens addressing the council. Is there anybody here tonight that wishes to address the council on issues, any issues? Put up your hand if you want to talk to the council, make a statement. Come on up, give us your name and your address.
I'm Jeff Brinkman. I'm at 650 33rd Street Northwest in Austin. And this is in regard to the Hy-Vee Distribution Center project. In a prior city council meeting, Holly Wallace had indicated that the distribution center had fit the Austin Comprehensive, City of Austin Comprehensive Plan. And I just had the question as to how that analysis was undertaken and what specific criteria under land use that the project met.
Okay, Craig?
Thank you, Mayor, and Holly certainly can add as well, but the comprehensive plan did look at economic development. In fact, that's one of the key provisions of the comprehensive plan, and it outlines that a healthy economy creates good paying jobs, provides economic opportunities to all its citizens. The economy also supports the tax base, providing for schools, police, fire protection, parks, and many other community facilities. The comp plan goes on and talks about maintaining a balance of industrial, commercial, and residential land uses to stabilize and enhance the city's tax base and provide high-quality employment opportunities. Suggests using policies of tax increment financing, business improvement districts, and community development authority and revolving loan programs. Furthermore, it talks about industrial use and outlining the continued use to strengthen and enhance our existing businesses and industrial park developments, continuing to promote the recruitment of new target industries that foster a strong, diversified economy while providing living wage jobs. So, and the comp plan did envision things that we're hopeful for as far as the distribution facility is concerned in the comp plan, so I wanted to point that out.
And then the question would be, follow-up question would be, how does this not constitute a spot zoning issue when it doesn't address the land use portions in the comprehensive plan?
That may be a legal.
Well, I would just indicate, I agree with what Mr. Clark said, and also that the area was analyzed with regard to any project, not specifically with the Hy-Vee distribution center. The area that we're talking about, and Mr. Hoveston can either agree or not agree, but it's quite large. spot zoning would be, you know, if we took an area, like say a 6,000 square foot city lot, you know, and decided that that should be commercial versus looking at the whole area as a whole.
I think spot zoning could be attributable to either partials or partial, so it could include several partials. And I don't believe it actually addresses a specific lot size.
Well, you asked a question, we gave you the answer. We're not going to argue this.
Mr. Hoverstein might have comment.
I'd be
Well,
happy-
yeah, it's my professional opinion, this is not an instance of spot zoning. I've studied that matter, I've studied cases, and looking at all the factors that come into this parcel, the development of that parcel, this is not spot zoning.
And we did ask for a legal opinion before we did it.
And what is your legal opinion of spot zoning?
Mr. Brinkman, I'm not here to give you advice or to argue legal theories with you. I give you my opinion, and that's all I intend to do tonight.
My last question would be, is the city okay if this is determined to be an illegal spot zoning issue? Will the city council still vote for this project?
I think that's a, you know, that's hypothetical question that we're not going to address. We follow the letter of the law.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jane Osbo. I live at 101 37th Street Northwest, Austin, directly across from the proposed production site for a production facility. I have a couple questions. First of all, I want to tell you I'm not coming to you as the enemy. I am coming, so I don't want to throw up that wall, but I will tell you I am fighting for my home. And I will not go quietly into the night. Has anyone in this room, excuse me, seen a plan or a projected plan for what this facility is going to look
There
like?
isn't a plan devised yet, to my knowledge.
No one has, not even a conceptual
It'd be
plan.
hard to know because they haven't put it together yet. We're still in the early stages of this. I think they're waiting for the environmental impact statement.
So there's a 1 million square foot project in the offing and no one's seen a plan for it?
There isn't a plan for it yet. It'd be hard to see if there wasn't a plan that I'm aware of.
Not even a drawing on a piece of paper or this is what we envision?
Do you have a drawing of your next home?
No, but I'll never get out from underneath the home I'm in.
Well, I know, but that's a similar type thing. If there isn't a drawing yet, they're not to that phase yet.
But I'm not looking to purchase another property, so that's the difference. Is there anyone in this room that has seen a Hy-Vee production plant? I made a trip to Cherokee.
A production plant or?
Yeah, distribution, I'm sorry. I get nervous up here, okay? Has anyone seen a distribution? Has anyone seen one? You saw one in person or like through Google Maps?
Through Google Maps.
Yes, I looked at Google Maps too. And then I had to, for my own peace of mind, look at it. So we drove to Cherokee. I cried for 3.5 hours on the way home. And I know that doesn't bother any of you, but it's my house that will be looking at that.
Let me ask one question of you. Is there any concept they can come up with putting that on that property that what you would say is okay?
Obviously, I'm never going to jump up and down and do cartwheels because it's being put there. But yes, I think there are things that can be done.
Okay.
And the concern that I have is, will they? Obviously, if you could push it farther to the interstate, that makes a huge difference. If you can do some green space, if you can do some planting, but they had 4 trees planted on this facility. There were 70 or 82 bays in the front. The parking lot was the truck driver's parking lot. There were 2. If you were a Hy-Vee truck, you came in one gate. If you were another truck, you came in another. There's nothing that looked like an office. There were all bays. Over here was the employee parking lot that was not paved. There was a small fence around this. There were 4 trees on all of the property. There was a fuel center, a refueling stop. There were 2 truck washes. There were 2 houses across the street, one on each end. One was a very old house that I talked to the lady and I asked her about it. And she said, oh, we bought this for a song because nobody wanted to buy this. And we tore down the old house and we put in a double wide. On the other end, I knocked on their door, I could not talk to them. The street that it's on, the facility itself is in the city. The people across from them, the 2 houses across, are not. The other thing, it's a little stub street that runs in front of it that does not look like it belongs. It looks like it's out in the country, quite frankly. Behind that, there's like a recycling place, like a steel recycling place. On this side, there's a gravel pit. There's a gravel with gravel trucks. That's it. There's no residential anywhere else. Matter of fact, the people in town weren't sure if it was part of the city or not. It was my worst nightmare.
I'd like to make a comment. You know, in Iowa, they have different laws and different ways of building things. They will not do an environmental impact study if it was built in Iowa. In Minnesota, we have to do an environmental impact study. We have to consider the people that are living there. We have to consider a lot of things: water, streets, noise. All these things are going to be considered. And there's going to be open meetings in the future to address these things. So I think we're getting ahead of ourselves right now. So just slow down, take a breath.
I'm trying.
Okay?
You're asking us questions that we don't know. I mean, we're going to do everything we can to make this place as livable and as nice as possible. I mean, how long have you lived out there?
Since 31 years.
Okay, you were there when the truck stop was open then, right?
Yeah.
Was that a problem? Yeah, you're farther down, you know, but some of them, Jeff, your dad was out there. Was he there then? Yeah. Okay, was that a big issue?
Less than 1 million plus square feet.
Well, yeah,
And it
but
wasn't-
that's going to be a mile away from your dad's house.
It's 1,100 feet.
Well, I don't know.
I
about
know
that.
I know what you're saying, that I'm jumping the gun, but you have to understand. What I saw was a huge cement building. It doesn't look like Hormel. There's no office space.
But I think that place has been up for about 20 years. I talked to their chamber there, and they said
They put a new addition on.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's been up for quite a while, and I did talk to some people in the chamber, and they said they loved it. I mean, one lady, but you know, she said they didn't have any problems.
I talked to people on the street. I didn't go to the chamber. I wanted people on the street, real people like myself. Mixed feelings. Some said it was fine as far as they knew. The others said that, well, she didn't really know. And I said, did you have a lot of people come in when these jobs were created? He said, no, they were mostly filled within. I said, so what do you think? She said, well, you know, nobody really sees it because it's kind of tucked in a little valley. It's totally different than looking at an established residential area. And it feels like we're being abandoned, quite frankly.
We don't even know. We have no idea what's going to happen out there yet. They, like David said, they don't even do an environmental impact. They wouldn't have the open meetings down there that you're probably going to be able to go to.
But we can go to those meetings, but they're suggestions only.
Right.
And so there's no binding. There's no binding thing that says, yes, we'll put up something so you don't have to look at this constant.
I will tell you one thing. When we were doing the Oak Park Mall negotiations, there was a lot of things. I thought the negotiations were over several times because other businesses out there were making demands that I thought were exorbitant because they couldn't do it and take the mall down and Hy-Vee build a new store unless these businesses agreed to it. And they basically said, either you give us this or we're just not gonna let you build it. And Hy-Vee bent over backwards to accommodate those people. If it wasn't for if they hadn't, we'd still have Oak Park Mall and we'd have it for who knows how many more years. So my experience from what I've seen with Hy-Vee has been very good. And I'd be surprised if they, if they didn't do similar with what, where they're gonna put this and things like that. And we're gonna press for it too as far as the city goes. We want it as livable out there as possible. So, I mean, it isn't like some strange company, and I've talked to people from other cities where their major industry could care less about the city, and they just run roughshod over them. I don't think you're going to see that with Hy-Vee. And they have a reputation, a very good reputation, too.
I wonder about that because in reading about Hy-Vee developing up in the cities, I see that they quickly tore down the old library that was slated to be on the National Register of Historic Places 2 weeks before it was to go on there.
Well, that's an issue.
I know that's an issue. I know, but those are the things that make me nervous. Yeah. And I'm just saying, I hope you do your homework, and I hope you consider everyone. And we are citizens of this community, and we're small in number, but we do. I pay my taxes. I try to do the right thing. I'm a school teacher. I've always said, be a good citizen. Be a good citizen. And in turn, that'll come back to
as the mayor said, and Councilmember Hagan, we're really focused on when there's plans to look at, and there aren't right now, that we want it to have the least invasive impact on the residential area. There are things to do, potentially, that we can talk, we would want to work on, like some kind of separation, some kind of buffer, zone that would, that could be vegetation, that could be, you mentioned only 4 trees, those are all things that are going to be discussed at these open meetings once there is a plan to be able to look at it and how the building's positioned on the property, etc. So I really hope to convey that dispel the myth, I would say, that we are, not caring and not responsive and not listening. We are.
And we had a meeting with some people from the state, from Deed, I believe she was from, and she said, to be honest, we mentioned this, and she said, to be honest with you, traffic usually isn't an issue with the new developments that they have. They said everybody is all excited about the traffic, but once it's done, it's usually not an issue.
Yeah, well,
so, I mean, everybody's getting all worked up, and we don't have any clue what's going to happen out there yet.
But but put yourself in our shoes.
You're assuming the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, I guess I don't blame you for it. Everybody always assumes the worst. It's just part of our human nature.
But I agree. But when you have nothing to go on, but what you can look at.
Okay, well, we need to move on in case.
Can I make a comment, please? I think, Ms. Osbo, I think the question that you're asking is, as a city council, are we going to sell out you and your neighbors for jobs? Are we willing to lay down and give anything Hy-Vee asks for the sake of jobs? And because there's been a lot of talk on the council about how the jobs are good for the whole community, which they are, and that's your question. Are we going to abandon you? Are we going to sell you out? Are we going to make your homes unlivable for the greater good? And it is not my intention to do that. I have every belief that a win-win solution can be come to, and that is my intention as a city council person, is to push for that. The tricky thing is, we're asking you to trust us based on nothing. Really, just trust us. Nothing's set in stone yet. And when specifics come, then there'll be more action. And we're asking you to live with uncertainty about your home, which I would say, next to your kids, is probably the most heartfelt thing. So we're asking you to live for months in uncertainty. And so I feel that your concerns are totally reasonable. And I wish I could say more to allay them, other than I personally am not going to sell out a neighborhood for the sake of jobs. Because if I'll sell out your neighborhood, next it'll be mine. And I don't think that's the community we are, and it's not the community I want to live in. So I hear you. We'll do our best.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Jane, how many square feet did you say that building was in Cherokee? so not a million square feet. Okay, Joanne Bergman, 102 37th Street Northwest. I guess it's beyond me how you guys can tell us you don't know anything and that you approve this project. And it doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect a single one. Let me finish. So, Mr. Mayor, you and the council have said that this distribution center is for the greater good of Austin. Tell me, what do we get out of this? Has any one of you driven out there by these homes that are going to be affected?
I have.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are nice homes out there, nice area. I'll tell you what we're going to get. We're going to get 1 million square feet of concrete dumped in our front yards, trucks and traffic 24/7.
You
So
don't know
you
that.
tell
You
me.
don't know that.
How?
No, just let her finish, but I just want to say that again, just what Laura said, what several people have said, we are going to look at the design as soon as there's a design, and there could be mitigation of noise and how visible.
How
what you
much
see.
can you, do you know what trucks sound like when you're right by them? We can't even hardly walk on the road now when trucks are going by.
So once again, there's no plans that they could come up with on that property that would satisfy you?
You could put houses there.
No, I mean with the Hy-Vee, if there's no plan that Hy-Vee can come up with that would be
Okay,
with
you have said you would live by this.
What's
You
that?
have said in previous meetings you would live by this.
I would.
Because it's for the greater good of Austin.
I'd live by because I don't think it'd be that big of a deal.
Well, you know what? We've got a house for sale. You're welcome. You know, I guess my concern is like Jane said, I'm fighting for my house, for my way of life. We have a beautiful home, a beautiful piece of property out there. You throw this on us, it throws everything out the window.
So there's nothing they could do that
I
would
just don't know
satisfy
how can you help us? No one tells us how. You say, we'll work with you, we'll work with you. Well, how?
You're asking us questions that they haven't developed these plans yet. You want us to give you answers for things that are 2 or 3 years down the road.
Well, I think you should have a better plan if you're approving this.
We're
If
not
you ask
approving
me,
anything.
we have had no representation on this. We're part of the city now, we've had
All
no
right.
representation.
You've had your 2 minutes. Have a seat.
That's fine. Thank you.
Craig, do you have a comment to make?
Just so we're clear, we have not approved any plans. What we've approved is participation in a financial arrangement to do an EIS, environmental impact statement, which gives in some cases, extraordinary review that is not afforded in other states. We will go through this in a methodical fashion, and it's not accurate to say we've approved the plans. Okay? Just so that's clear to everyone that's listening.
And I think what we have some citizens that are they're against it no matter what. No matter where they put it, no matter how, it doesn't matter, you're gonna be against it. Well, I don't know how we can make you happy or how we can deal with, how do we deal with that? Do we say no to Hy-Vee? Because, you're trying to have us answer questions that, this is the regular way it's done.
What about the industrial park? Why do we have an industrial park?
We've talked to them about that. They don't want those areas. You think we just walked into this and said, hey, why don't you go out here across from these people? This is the area they want. They're very specific on that. Ma'am, we're not building by you.
You're what? You're not building mine? Well, thank goodness.
What's that?
Well, thank goodness. Not yet, I'm sure. My name is Mara Murphy. I live at 1516 18th Avenue Northwest.
Right.
I just say this as an overall generalization on the fact, kind of evolving on the fact that I said this is what I feel is the Renaissance of Austin. And it will take many years for this to evolve, just like any Renaissance. The reason I'm here this evening is to challenge you to look at the view. Look at the view. I stand before you requesting an overall vision. I see that, I think in April, you did a windshield study where you drive around and kind of look at Austin and how it's developing and getting ideas and such. I'm a nurse, so we call a public health nurse, so we would call that a windshield study. Several years ago, a Pulitzer Prize author wrote a speech and a book on what she learned from homeless people. And she was on Coney Island, and there was a man sitting out on the end of Coney Island on a pier. And when she went up to him, she asked him, it was the middle of the winter, and she asked him, why do you have newspapers over your head? And why are you sitting out here in the middle of winter? And he said, lady, look at the view, look at the view. And I guess that's my question, or my point to you today is to look at the view. I think we need to look at the view of all of Austin. And there's so much beauty here. There's so much here to be developed that's actually not developed on my farm. I look out at a concrete former Target building. And a couple years ago, I went to India. And I landed in New Delhi. And all of a sudden, I realized that I wasn't in Minnesota or Kansas anymore with my dog Toto. It was a completely different experience. I spent several days in New Delhi, and we walked around, and it smelled like urine most of the time. It was dirty, it was filthy. And I remember telling the people that I was with, I went there to study Tibetan medicine, so I was with several doctors and other health professionals from the University of Minnesota. And I remember saying, I would love to come here and be their director of environment, because it was completely filthy. So we spent several days in New Delhi and learned about that. And then we drove up to Dharamsala, which is where the Dalai Lama lives. And through that drive, it was probably 10 to 14 hours, all along the roadside, there were diapers and garbage and little children running around in diapers. And at one point, we saw a man that had been killed when he was riding on a bicycle.
You're going to have to hurry this.
I know. Well, I'll get to my point. There were people defecating in the fields. It was just a complete mess. But then when I came home back here to Minnesota, it was it opened my eyes. And it was, all of a sudden, I remembered that story from 2000 of the woman and the homeless man, who it was, take a look at the view, take a look at the view. And I got to see that view in a whole different light. The grass was greener. It was May when I arrived. The flowers, I could smell them. Everything looked brighter and more beautiful. And I guess that is my encouragement to all of you and to all of us, is to look at the view. There's so much here, there's so much beauty, and sometimes maybe we take that for granted. And another thing that I saw in India were lots and lots of concrete buildings that hadn't been finished because of money or something that had happened. They were all vacant. It was a completely different what it looks like here. But in some ways, we're kind of moving in that direction if we have all of these vacant concrete buildings. And I just encourage us as a city, a good city, to take a look at the view and make things beautiful for our citizens and for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I have just a quick question.
Hi, Deidre Smith, 3916 Oakland Avenue West. I just had a couple of quick questions. I too am not the enemy. I am just have a couple of questions in hopes that this will help make some decisions for my family a little easier as we progress through this big life change, potentially. You had said, Mayor, that when you talked to Jane Osbo about whether or not you could do anything to make it better. And Janet, you talked a little bit about, a barrier or things. My question to add on to that, which is, intriguing a little bit to know that maybe there'll be some barrier. It makes me a little afraid still to know that there isn't quite all those answers, because honestly, my family is considering moving to Grand Meadow, where my husband teaches and my children go to school. So when I think about what you could do to make it better in terms of the view, I hope that there's some ideas there that we can visit with. My bigger concern is my children. And is there an idea or something that you could consider in terms of where that traffic is going to go? Because my idea is that it's going to go over that little bridge and it's going to come down Oakland where I'm living. And then if that is truly the case, and you could give me that answer as a yes, I am moving immediately. Do you have?
By your house. You're down a little ways. I mean, they could very easily. I don't know.
I'm not down a little ways. I can see the storage units from where I live.
You can see them.
Yeah.
But they could very well put that driveway east.
Right. Exactly. So that's what I'm hoping that you're going to tell me. Like, is it going to be? Is it right? So that's fearful for me to not know. When do you think? Because we're living in a beautiful little double wide trailer that we can't stay in anymore. We were going to build, and so if we're not, we need to know sooner than. It's just not feasible for me to think that I'm going to wait a couple of years, and I don't know. I wish that there.
I don't have any idea how long, we don't have any kind of a time.
So is there options in consideration for exit off of the interstate, so it's not even coming down our road?
We don't, I think they want to use that exit.
They want to use the exit that's going to come across that bridge?
I'm assuming that.
Okay.
I don't
So
know
let me pose this differently. I'm not asking you a question because I know that you don't have any answers. But when you're sitting in your meetings and you're talking about ways that you can help us, please consider that. Consider presenting to Hy-Vee that the road is going to, or the entrance is going to not come in front of our homes. That could make a huge difference.
You know, if I had my way, I'd have them put in a different exit that goes right from the freeway right to. Now, I don't think that's feasible, but it's certainly a question that we're going to ask.
Perfect.
You know, you have to go through DOT and all of that stuff. But I mean, if they could put an exit that went right to them and then they could get on right there without getting on that highway, that would cure most of our problems.
Sure.
But I don't know that that's feasible. That's certainly something we'd need to explore.
So in terms of timeline and answers, we won't know anything until the environmental study is done.
They won't do anything until the environmental impact study is done.
And how long is that going to take?
9 months. And
Okay.
what was the starting date on that, Craig?
It's begun.
It's begun, so it's
Okay.
within 9 months, hopefully.
And then my final question, is there any way that there is a potential that this space would ever not be the location of the distribution center?
It's not a done deal.
Okay.
That's why, I mean, we hope we get these jobs. You know, we hope they do it in such a manner that everybody is, I mean, there's going to be people that don't want it there no matter what we do. We could put an exit, it doesn't matter. There's going to be people that aren't going to want it there no matter what. And we've talked to the people from the state and they say every single project they do, there's always people that don't want it no matter what. So, you know, we're going to have to accept that. But at the same time, we're going to do our best to make this as livable as possible for the people in that area. I mean, we sit here and we have people telling us, you don't care about us, and you know, you just want this. That's ridiculous. We do care, and that's why we're here, and we want to make it as livable.
Right,
as possible.
and you do understand our fear, though, right? And in my position with 3 children, and you know, they're old enough that they're riding their bikes now, and you know, there are these concerns. And I'm not established. You know, I can tell you right now, if my father-in-law were still living, I don't know. So we're not as established in that I've got these deep-rooted, it's sentimental value, but I just don't want to, I personally, and I know that they don't feel this way, but Randy and I don't want to put any more time into this place if this is what's going to happen. Because we have been advised to not put any more value into this piece of property. So what do we do? So what would you do?
What I'd wait until I found out what they're going to do, and I could see some plans for what's going on out there.
Hy-Vee could pull out at any time for any reason.
Right.
So is there any possibility that it would not happen? Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities. The economy goes bad, or they have some situation in their business, or the study comes back and we ask for conditions that they're not willing to meet. All of those things could.
So here's another question then. It doesn't pull out, it still happens, and we hold on, and this is just my husband and I talking around the kitchen table, right? And now we're sitting, and we have this little stupid double-wide trailer on 2.4 acres, and now I can't sell it, because who wants to buy that? You know, they'd want to buy it and put a beautiful home on, which is what we wanted to do. So I don't know. So I'm hoping.
But you don't know until I've talked to people and adjusters in real estate. They say it may have no impact whatsoever on the value of those homes.
It might not.
It might not have any. Maybe the value will go up because people will want to live close by where they can walk. I've heard that from people.
I could only hope that.
Yeah. I mean, you just don't know until we see what they're going to do.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oops, careful. Anybody else? We need your name and your address, sir.
Yeah, my name's Mike Steichen. I live at 54760 180th Street, Austin.
Okay, you're here for something else, right?
I think so.
I do too.
That's on
Maybe I'll be at the
that's
work
on the
session afterwards.
You know what?
Oh.
Yeah, it's on our work session.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about
We'll
that.
have a meeting right after this, and that's when we'll be talking about that. Anybody else? Otherwise, we're gonna move on. Nobody else? All right, we're to final reports, and Paul, we'll start with you tonight, Your Honor. David?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Laura?
Nothing, Your Honor.
This past week, a group of us went over housing shortage is one of the issues that Austin is facing, rental and residential. And so we've been exploring options to see how we might address those kinds of issues. So a group of us were in Rochester looking at different kinds of apartment complexes that we hope we can start to develop some plans that could fit for Austin.
Okay. Jeffrey?
After over four long months, I'm pleased to announce that the 11th Drive Northeast Bridge is finally reopened as of about 4:30 this afternoon. So all of you citizens that have been struggling to get to the utilities, McFarland Truck Line, and Quick Trip can now have easy access to those places.
What was that last one?
Quick Trip.
Oh, okay.
We look forward to seeing you all again.
Good. Steve?
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Nothing. Judy?
Nothing, Your Honor.
We did have the opportunity to, representatives from Minnesota Management and Budget and the Governor's Office came through and visited with us about our bonding projects, the Ramsey Mill Pond area and the 4th Avenue project. So it was a pleasure having them in town. And we hope the Governor can include us in his bonding proposal.
Okay, any reports?
Julie has one and Stephen, I believe.
Julie, you go first.
Okay. I just wanted to let everybody know that September 29th and October 30th, no, September 29th and 30th, the Friends of the Austin Public Library had their used book sale. They do this twice a year, and it's always amazing to watch what those volunteers can put together in just a couple of days. They sold, let's see, total, I think with the two this year, they brought in almost $8,500 for the library. So I just wanted to give a really big shout out to the Friends of the Library and their volunteers. They're really amazing. And to the community members who not only bring in donations for them to sell, but then also come back and buy books to fill their basements back up with. So thank you very much.
A lot of people love the library in Austin. Stephen?
Just to expand on what Mr. Austin talked about there, other projects around town, 4th Avenue Northwest from St. A's Church down to the athletic field. We've opened up sections of that to local residents so they can access their driveways again. And we're shooting for this coming Friday to open it up to all traffic. There's some additional work that will continue on after that, but our goal is to get that roadway open the end of this week. 4th Drive Southwest has one more lift of asphalt to be placed on it, but for the most part, it is open to local residents. And we'll be completing that final lift of asphalt this week. And then we have some trail work and some restoration on Phase 3, which is the very south end. 5th, 6th, and 7th Avenues Northwest, I believe we completed the placement of aggregate base today, and we'll be doing curb and gutter later this week on that project. 4th Avenue Southwest, a 2-block stretch, is in this similar stage where we'll be placing aggregate base later this week. And then the last project is 6th Street and 16th Avenue Southwest down by Woodson School. That project will be completing underground work this week with Austin Utilities doing water main work and storm sewer work this week. And then that one will follow with aggregate base, curb and gutter, and asphalt pavement.
Okay, anything else? The only thing I want to say is I want to thank people for coming. You know, I think council gets a little frustrated because we don't know what's going to happen. We also know no matter what they do, there's people that are going to be against it. I mean, no matter what we do. And that is really frustrating, and I wish you'd keep an open mind on it. And let's see what they do out there. There's going to be a process. And we are here to try and make that as nice as possible. So, you know, if you'll just give us a little time, and we'll get as much input from you as we can and try and make this as positive as possible. It's definitely a good thing for the city if this goes through. You know, we're trying to make it a good thing for you people too, as good as possible. All right, with that, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll take a short break and then have a work session across the hall.